Hello and welcome to Dressmaking Amore. We're going to be making a dress using one of my oldest sewing patterns, the beautiful bohemian-inspired Mila dress. It has a classic scoop neckline, elegant sloped shoulders, and it flows into a beautiful A-line silhouette decorated with a ruffle at the bottom of the dress that gives it just that extra bit of sweet and feminine flowy look to this gorgeous maxi dress. I'll be using my Mila dress PDF sewing pattern, so to follow along, get yours at the link below in the description, and here are the materials that you'll need. Please refer to your instructional booklet that comes with your pattern to choose your right size and print and assemble the pattern perfectly. All of the detailed steps for the whole sewing process of this dress are in there. I'm using a beautiful silk chiffon fabric for this version of the dress, so here are our cut pattern pieces: the front, the back, the ruffle front and back pieces, and the armhole binding and the neckline binding. Okay, let's get to sewing. Place the front and back wrong sides together and sew the shoulder seams with a French seam 1 cm from the edge, and then trim the seam allowances to 3 mm. Now press the seam allowances open or to one side like this, and flip out the dress, placing it right sides together, with the shoulder seam line exactly on the edge of the fold, and press it flat. Then pin the shoulder seams together and stitch 5 to 6 mm away from the fold, and pressing the seam to one side this time. Take your armhole binding bias strip, fold it in half wrong sides together, and press. Doing the same for the neckline binding. Then pin the binding to the armhole of the dress right sides together, with the raw edges being on the same side like this. Don't stretch the bias strip, otherwise you won't have an even result. Now cut off the excess and sew the folded bias strip with the seam allowances being 6 mm. Now fold this strip towards your seam allowance and understitch the bias strip 1 mm from the edge. And trim the seam allowances to half. Press. And fold the bias strip towards the wrong side of the dress, leaving just 1 mm of fabric at the edge, pressing and pinning along the armhole. Sew close to the edge on the other side of the bias strip. Press the armhole and repeat for the other armhole. Now this step here is important. Stay stitch the neckline to stabilize the edge and prevent it from stretching. Then check if the neckline isn't stretched out while it's laying flat. If you see a little bit of puckering like this, take the thread of the stay stitch and very lightly gather up the fabric to return it to its original shape. From the right side, pin the binding to the neckline raw edges together and sew, leaving 2.5 cm unsewn at the very beginning. The seam allowances here are 5 to 6 mm. Then once we're done and we've come back to the beginning of the seam, take the unsewn start of the strip, fold it over at an angle like this, and place the other end over the folded end a few millimeters away from the edge, and sew over it for about 2.5 cm. Then cut off the excess of the binding and fold the binding over the seam allowance and top stitch it 1 mm away from the seam. Trim your seam allowances. And press. Then flip the binding to the wrong side and press. Pinning along the neckline. sew along the other edge of the binding. And now press our pretty neckline. Pin the side seams together, matching up the marks, and if your marks don't match up, that means one side is stretched out against the other side, so you want to be very careful when cutting the fabric. Sew the side seams with either a French seam like we did the shoulder seams, or just sew and serge. Press the side seams. And then hem the dress by double folding 5 to 6 millimeters at the bottom edge to the wrong side, stitch and press the seam. Sew the side seam of the ruffle with a French seam or stitch and serge and press. Now sew a baby hem at both edges of the ruffle. Fold 5 to 6 millimeters towards the wrong side and edge stitch the long side of a ruffle. And then we're going to trim the seam allowances close to the seam and press. Fold the seam over and edge stitch again, trying to match right into our previous seam. And now the baby hem is done. Just make sure you do a baby hem for both the top and bottom edge of the ruffle. Now to gather our ruffle, change the length of the stitch to the max and sew 6 millimeters from the edge without backstitching. Then place the second stitch 6 millimeters away from the first. Then mark the quarters at the bottom edge of the dress as well as the top edge of the ruffle. After this, we can place the dress inside the ruffle, pinning it together, matching up at the quarter marks. I like to pin here at a cross so that the gathering is secure here. Then pull at the threads and gather the ruffle in between the pins, tying knots to hold the gatherings in place. And then with the ruffle gathering covering the hem seam of the dress like this, sew the ruffle to the skirt, sewing in between the gathering stitches that we made. Here's what it looks like from the inside, and taking away the gathering stitches and giving your garment a finishing press like always, we are done with our beautiful Mila dress. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this inspires you to sew this charming piece yourself. I know you'll love it. You can get the PDF downloadable sewing pattern that I used below at the link in the description of this video, and happy sewing!